My name is Arabella. I am 25 years old. I grew up in a small town. When I was a child, my family was very happy. My father worked as a mechanic. He spent long hours fixing cars, but he always came home with a smile. My mother was a teacher. She was gentle, patient, and kind. Every evening she read stories to me before bed. I thought life would always stay the same, but life does not always follow our plans. When I was 11 years old, my mother became sick. At first, nobody seemed worried. The doctor said she needed rest, but weeks became months. Instead of getting better, she became weaker. I remember watching her sit quietly in her chair by the window. She smiled whenever she saw me, but her smile looked different. One evening, my father sat beside me. His eyes were red. He held my hand and said, "Arabella, Mom is very sick." A few months later, my mother passed away. That day changed everything. The house felt empty. The laughter disappeared. My father tried to stay strong for me, but I could see his pain. Sometimes I heard him crying quietly at night. Sometimes I saw him looking at old photographs for hours. For many years, it was just the two of us. We missed my mother every day. Then one evening, when I was 15 years old, my father sat across from me at the table. He looked nervous. He said, "Arabella, there's someone I want you to meet." I said, "Who?" My father took a deep breath. He said, "Her name is Sophia." I immediately knew what he meant. I said, "Are you dating her?" He nodded. I felt angry, very angry. It felt like a betrayal. I said, "How could you?" My father's face fell. He said, "Arabella, nobody could ever replace your mother." I said, "But you're trying to replace her." My father said, "No, I'm trying to move forward." I refused to listen. A week later, I met Sophia. She arrived at our house carrying a chicken pie. She had kind eyes. She said, "Hello, Arabella. It's nice to meet you." I looked at her for a moment. Then I walked away without saying a word. That was our first meeting. And unfortunately, things only became worse. Sophia tried hard to be friendly. She asked about school. Sophia remembered my favorite foods. She bought me birthday gifts, but I rejected every effort. If she asked how my day was, I answered with one word. If Sophia tried to help me, I told her to leave me alone. If she smiled at me, I looked away. In my mind, she was the enemy. A year later, my father married her. It was a small wedding. Sophia looked at me and said, "I know this is difficult, Arabella, but I hope one day we can be friends." I crossed my arms. I said, "We will never be family." Her smile disappeared. After the wedding, Sophia moved into our home. I hated every change. She planted flowers in the garden. She hung new curtains in the living room. To me, it felt like she was erasing my mother's memory. I became even colder toward her. Every kind gesture made me angry. Every smile annoyed me. My father often tried to speak with me. He said, "Sophia cares about you." I said, "No, she doesn't." Years passed. I finished school and found a job, but my relationship with Sophia never improved. Then everything changed. One winter morning, I received a phone call while I was at work. It was my father. He said, "Arabella, can you come to the hospital?" My heart stopped. I said, "What happened?" He said, "I'll explain when you get here." I rushed to the hospital. When I arrived, I found my father sitting in a hospital bed. Sophia was beside him. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. I said, "What happened?" My father said, "I had some heart problems. I felt sick." My father had been visiting the hospital for months, and I knew nothing about it. After the appointment, I pulled Sophia aside. I said, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Sophia said, "Your father didn't want you to worry?" I stared at her. I said, "Months, Sophia. This has been happening for months." Sophia lowered her eyes. Then she said, "I asked him to tell you many times." I said, "What? You did?" Sophia nodded. She said, "I thought you deserved to know." That evening, while my father rested, I stayed at the hospital. Sophia stayed there too. Hours passed. Late at night, I noticed she was still awake. I looked at Sophia and said, "Why haven't you gone home? You've been here all day." Sophia looked surprised. She said, "Someone should stay with him." I stared at her. For the first time, I saw how much she cared. The next day, my father needed another test. While he was gone, Sophia and I sat together. She said, "Your father means everything to me." I nodded. I said, "He means everything to me too." Sophia smiled and said, "Arabella, when your father and I started dating, he talked about you constantly. He was so proud of you. He loved you more than anything." Tears filled my eyes. I believed Sophia because I could hear the honesty in her voice. A few days later, my father returned home. His condition improved. The doctors gave him medicine. Life slowly returned to normal. I started paying attention. I noticed Sophia waking up early every morning to prepare breakfast. I noticed her organizing my father's medicines. I noticed how patient she was with me. One afternoon, I found an old photo album in the living room. Sophia was sitting nearby. I opened it. Inside were photographs of my mother. I looked at Sophia. I said, "Why do you keep these?" She said, "Because she was important." I said, "You aren't jealous?" Sophia shook her head. "No." She said, "She was part of your father's life, and she will always be your mother." For years, I had convinced myself that Sophia wanted to replace my mother, but that was not true. Slowly, I stopped seeing her as the stepmother. I started seeing her as Sophia, a kind person, a person who had spent years trying to love me despite my anger. There was something I needed to say, something I should have said years earlier. I said, "I'm sorry, Sophia. I was cruel to you. I blamed you for things that were never your fault. You didn't deserve that." Tears filled my eyes. For a moment, Sophia looked at me. Her eyes became wet. Then she held my hand and said, "It's okay, Arabella." That moment changed our relationship forever. Months passed. Then one evening, our family gathered for dinner. My father seemed happier than I had seen him in years. I reached for Sophia's hand. She looked surprised. I smiled, and for the first time in my life, I called her something new. I said, "Thank you, Mom." Sophia froze. Tears filled her eyes. My father looked shocked. Neither of us could speak. We did not need to. Loving a new person does not mean forgetting someone from the past. My mother will always be my mother. Nothing can change that. And Sophia will always be the woman who never gave up on me. The woman who helped our family heal. Families are not perfect. They are built through understanding, forgiveness, and love. My stepmother was never the villain. She was one of the kindest people I have known. I am grateful that she became part of my family. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.